Welcome to this explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled you're tuning in today because we're going to completely shatter a really common myth. When most people think of hypnotherapy, they immediately picture swinging pocket watches, mystical scripts, and people falling into these deep, mysterious trances. But the truth about what makes a hypnotherapist truly effective, it's entirely different, and frankly, it is way more fascinating. Today we're breaking down the anatomy of connection. So I want you to really think about this for a second. What actually dictates the success of a therapeutic relationship? What's the one single tool that can completely make or break a session, long before a client even closes their eyes? Okay, let's dive into this. Spoiler alert, the answer is not a script. It's not some top-secret therapeutic language pattern, and it is certainly not a magical induction technique. The true intervention, the intervention before the intervention, is actually just excellent professional communication. Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with why communication is more than just scripts. Then we'll unpack active listening, look at speaking and body language, navigate through some common fears and conflicts, and finally explore how all these skills extend way beyond the therapy room.
All right, let's get into section 1, more than just scripts.
Because here's the reality, clients who rarely judge a therapist solely on the quality of their hypnosis script or their technical induction skills. When a client leaves your office, they aren't grading your technical proficiency. They remember how they felt. They remember whether they felt listened to, respected, and truly understood. And that relies entirely on rapport, which is building a trusting, respectful, and cooperative relationship. Here's why this matters so much. Poor communication creates anxiety, confusion, and resistance before the hypnosis has even begun. If a client doesn't feel safe with you, they simply won't engage. Misunderstandings and unclear explanations will undermine even the most technically brilliant therapist out there. That makes building rapport through excellent communication a completely non-negotiable clinical skill.
Moving right along to section 2, the power of active listening. Let's see how this builds into the unspoken layer of communication. There is a deeply critical distinction we need to make here between just hearing someone and truly listening to them. Are you actually listening, or are you just waiting for your turn to speak? That little silence right there, that brief pause you just heard, that wasn't a glitch in the audio. It is a space for thought, for reflection, and for true listening to actually occur. Active listening means fully concentrating on, understanding, and responding thoughtfully to what a client communicates. New therapists often feel this immense pressure to constantly say something helpful. It's like they're scrambling for the perfect words. But ironically, experienced therapists actually speak way less. They recognize that clients often discover their own profound insights when they're simply given the space to think and speak without interruption. Instead of immediately hunting for a quick fix or a solution, effective therapists first seek to understand. So what does active listening actually look like in the real world? Well, it means giving your absolute full attention and maintaining appropriate eye contact. It means actively holding back the urge to interrupt. It involves reflecting back key points just to confirm you actually understand what they're saying. It's noticing those subtle emotions and indirect signals, like a slight hesitation or maybe a nervous laugh, and then asking thoughtful follow-ups. And as we just demonstrated, it means allowing silence when appropriate. These behaviors communicate incredible respect. They show the client without a shadow of a doubt that they are emotionally safe to share openly with you. Okay, section 3, speaking and body language. We're shifting now into the expressive layer of communication, because the words you choose and exactly how you deliver them can either powerfully encourage hope or unintentionally reinforce a client's limitations. Look at this comparison. You could use heavy, intimidating jargon like, "We're going to utilize ideomotor signaling to facilitate unconscious communication." I mean, if you say that to a client, you might sound really smart, but you're probably just going to confuse them. Instead, try plain language. During the session, I'll ask your unconscious mind to communicate in a simple way. The absolutely crucial point here is that your goal is not to impress clients with complex terminology, it's to help them feel informed and comfortable. Plain, clear language works far better every single time. But words are really only part of the story. Verbal and nonverbal consistency is absolutely vital. Just imagine a therapist saying, "Take your time," while literally staring at their watch. It completely contradicts the verbal message, right? It unintentionally screams impatience. Now imagine warm facial expressions, a calm vocal tone, and an attentive posture that perfectly matches those supportive words. When your verbal and nonverbal communication are in sync, you deeply strengthen therapeutic trust. Part of speaking effectively is also knowing exactly how to ask the right questions. Open questions invite exploration, like asking, "What would you like to be different?" This encourages the client to describe their experience in real depth. Closed questions, on the other hand, like, "Have you experienced this before?" are perfect for confirming facts or clarifying specific details quickly. As a professional, you need to thoughtfully use both types to effectively steer the session and gather accurate information without making it feel like an interrogation.
Which brings us to Section 4, Navigating Fears and Conflicts.
This is what we call the navigational layer. It is so important to acknowledge that clients don't always walk in perfectly calm and ready to go. They often carry deep uncertainties and misconceptions about losing control. Let's bring this out of the textbook and into the real world with a hypothetical client. We'll call her Lisa. She sits down looking super anxious and says, "I'm worried you'll make me do something embarrassing like I've seen on television." This is a very real, very common anxiety stemming from stage hypnosis and pop culture. How you respond to this exact moment determines the entire trajectory of the therapy.
Now, a rushed, well-meaning but ultimately dismissive therapist might just brush it off and say, "Oh, don't worry about it." But that completely shuts the client down. It dismisses her concern without actually addressing it. A true professional response, however, respectfully acknowledges the fear. You say it's a completely normal question, and then you directly educate Lisa on the difference between clinical and stage hypnosis, assuring her that she will remain completely aware and in control. By addressing the fear honestly and without any exaggeration, the professional response directly disarms her anxiety and builds realistic expectations.
Of course, sometimes conversations get even more difficult than that. Clients might become highly emotional, frustrated, or even angry. When that happens, lean on responses like, "Help me understand what concerns you most," or "Thank you for telling me how you're feeling," or simply, "Let's work through this together." Remaining calm and genuinely curious during an emotional moment, rather than getting defensive, actually supercharges the therapeutic relationship. It proves to the client that you are a safe harbor even when things get rocky.
Finally, Section 5, Beyond the Therapy Room.
We have reached our final external layer. Professionalism doesn't just magically vanish the second your client walks out your office door. It extends to every single touchpoint you have with them. Good written communication is absolutely crucial. Every email, appointment reminder, and clinical note must be clear, grammatically accurate, free from jargon, and highly respectful in tone. Why does this matter so much? Because written communication often becomes part of a client's permanent record. Whether you're emailing a client to check in or writing a referral letter to a general practitioner, your written words are a lasting reflection of your professional identity. And this applies heavily to the digital world too. Increasingly, we're doing sessions via telephone or video conferencing. When you do, you have got to minimize distractions, confirm privacy at both ends of the call, speak clearly, and maintain strong boundaries. I really want to stress this. The ethical standards for safety, confidentiality, and professionalism remain exactly the same whether you're speaking to a client in person, over the phone, or through a computer screen. To summarize everything we've covered today, I want you to remember this absolutely crucial clinical insight. Communication is not simply the way therapy begins. It is an essential part of therapy itself. Every single interaction, from the first hello to the final email, is an opportunity to demonstrate compassion, build rapport, and foster the trust that makes effective hypnotherapy possible.
Which brings us to our final thought, and a question I really want to challenge you with today. Based on the anatomy of connection we've just unpacked, how is your next conversation going to change the way you connect? Are you going to allow for a moment of silence? Will you swap out that heavy jargon for plain language? Are you going to actively listen just a bit more closely? Take these structured skills, apply them to your very next interaction, and just watch the quality of your connections completely transform. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.